I mean, we've got a great session today packed with a lot of information and really looking forward to sharing it with you today. We also have with us today Emma Nelson. She's part of my team and a tremendous help. There she is. There she is. So,
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm a LinkedIn expert and I will be moderating today.
she absolutely is. So thank you, Emma. Appreciate you being able to attend today, taking time out of your day as well. So, all right. Well, it looks like 12:02. I guess we can go ahead and get started. Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. And as folks join, they can, like I say, they can always watch the replay if they need to, and that's not a problem. So, like I say, welcome. Thanks for attending. I'm glad you're here. We're glad you're here. And again, really appreciate you for taking time out of your day to join us live and to learn how to get hired faster by understanding how psychology influences hiring decisions. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, before we get started, let me just a couple of housekeeping things here. I'm going to ask you to do a few things. I'm going to ask you first, remove all distractions if you can for the next 45 minutes, if that's at all possible. Obviously, don't jeopardize your job or anything like that if you're at work, but just maybe turn the phone off or put it on focus mode, turn focus mode on your computer, just so you're not distracted when our brains are split doing multiple things at once. It's hard to really pay attention. So make sure to write down any questions as they come up and jot down any information that really resonates or jumps out at you. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to start applying what you learn. Anything that you learn that really kind of really, like I say, resonates or jumps out at you, really start trying to apply it if you can in the next, even as early as the next 24 hours. Okay. The more you engage with this knowledge, this is pedagogy, basically, learning methodologies, that the more you engage with this information, the more likely you'll not only recall it, but the more likely you'll be able to internalize and to apply it as well. So let's go ahead. And I also, like I said, I do encourage you to stay to the end because I'll be giving away some free bonuses. And we'll also be doing, we'll leave some time at the end. We've allotted about 45 minutes for kind of the meat of the program here. And we'll be saving some time at the end for questions. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to ask for some reactions from you guys. I'd love to know. So give me a thumbs up in the chat or as a reaction, if you know how to find those. If any of these statements sound like you. How about, I'm sending out dozens or maybe hundreds of applications and nothing. I'm hearing nothing back at all. Give me a thumbs up in either as a reaction or in the chat if that's you. If that's something you're familiar with. I find it hard to believe that nobody's experiencing that. If that's the case, then I'm thrilled to hear it. That's good. That's good. I know we've got a nice combination, based on the questions that you filled out, that you answered when you signed up for this program, for this event. I know that we've got a nice mixture of some folks who are experiencing different things at different points in their job search. So how about this one? They tell me I'm a perfect fit. The recruiter always tells me I'm a perfect fit. They call me for a screening, but then they disappear and I never hear from them again. Give me a thumbs up if that's been your experience. Oh, yeah. Okay. So so you are hearing from recruiters. That's a good sign. That's actually not a bad thing. I'm glad to hear that from you guys because that's actually a good sign. It means, you're doing something right. You've gotten that next step further. Okay. How about this one? I'm landing interviews, but I think I ace it. I feel like I ace it, and then crickets. I never even get to learn what I did wrong or what I could have done to be, the candidate who gets the job. I'm always the runner-up. Give me a thumbs up if that's been your experience. That's kind of where you're stuck. Okay, so we've got a bunch of those as well. Okay, all right. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? That's not a good place to be either. None of these things feel good. And how about this last one? How about I'm not really happy where I am, but I'm afraid to leave because what if I can't find something else? This market doesn't, it feels like this market's not great. I hear that quite a bit. I'm really afraid that if I walk away, I'm afraid to jump ship without having another, kind of having a lifeboat. Okay. How many of you feel that way? Give me a thumbs up if you're experiencing that yourself right now. Some of you are experiencing that for sure. Okay. All right. So we've got a real mixture, like I said. I think that's, I think it's important to remember that, you're not alone. As you can see, you're in this session. There are several people here who are saying the same things as you are, and they're experiencing the same things as you are. And here's the thing. You're not alone, and you're also not as helpless as you feel right now. It can be very, very frustrating and really demoralizing to be stuck in that place where I don't know if I have the ability to control the outcome. But today I'm going to share some key principles with you that are going to help you understand why you might be feeling this way and what you can do about it. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with that. First of all, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, I'm Gwen. I moved to the sunny skies of Central Florida from Wisconsin after shoveling 6 inches of wet snow from my driveway on April 24th in 2018. I decided enough was enough. That was it for me. And so headed for sunnier skies. I'm a wife and a mother of 2 grown kids who I consider my best friends. I'm lucky enough to be able to say that. And a dog, as you can see here, who's definitely too smart for his own good, but adorable nonetheless. I love to play with him. He's, kind of my pride and joy. As you can see, I spend a lot of time at Disney. I'm an avid reader and quite a nerd, if I admit it myself. I've read over, believe it or not, well over 100 Star Wars novels, and be happy to talk to you about it any day. And chances are, although I'll take, if somebody wants to take on the challenge, I'm happy to do it. I can probably beat you at Disney trivia. And I do, like I say, I do spend a lot of time there, so that shouldn't be too surprising. Now that you've known a little bit about me, if you didn't before, let's talk about this, that research says that the average person will have 7 careers, not jobs, careers in their lifetime. Can you believe that? I mean, gone are the days of you get a job at one place and you spend 35, 40 years in that same place and, retire with this healthy pension. And those days are generally long gone, even in government jobs these days. So, if you're having 7 careers in your lifetime, well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But what I wanted to say was that it's certainly true of me. As you can see, we're looking at 7 careers here. I've actually had kind of more than 7, but these have really encompassed the bulk of my career. I started my career as a psychotherapist in private practice for 17 years. And I went on to develop a guidance department at a K-8 school. And at the same time was actually teaching psychology at university, which I loved. That was one of my favorite jobs, actually. I grew up in a family of business owners, though. And at some point I decided I wanted to grow, or wanted to, help people grow their businesses. So that's when I became a business and a sales coach. And interestingly, one of my sales coaching clients, a financial services firm actually, asked me to come on board full-time and to build their talent acquisition function, which was interesting because, I'd never worked in talent acquisition before. I'd never been a recruiter or nothing like it. So it really sounded like an interesting challenge to me. And it indeed was. Eventually, though, because I built the function for them, I eventually worked myself out of that job and that position was eliminated. But then I went on to lead talent acquisition at another Fortune 500 and eventually found myself helping folks on the other side of the desk, people like you, to get hired as a career services advisor, director of career services, and as a job search guide. And over my 30+ year career across a bunch of different domains, there's always been one mission for me, and that's to help people get where they want to go. And that's what I want to help you do too. So, I'm guessing that most of you probably found me through one of my LinkedIn posts. It's my primary social media. I don't think I'm too old for TikTok. I still enjoy it, but haven't really dove into that whole world yet. So you've probably found me on LinkedIn. And so you probably already know that I teach professionals who are mid-career, a senior career, even executives, these professionals land their next role fast by taking charge of the hiring process from the outside. You don't have to wait for somebody else to choose you or to decide that you're the right person. You have much more power than you think you do. And that's why we're here, right? Give me a thumbs up if that's why you're here. You want to learn how to do that. You want to learn how to take charge of it from the outside. Okay, yes, I do like to see that. All right, well then, good. That's why we're here. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm I'm just going to say this, okay? There's a lot of job search advice out there on LinkedIn and just about everywhere, really, from Instagram to Discord to YouTube to TikTok. And just about anybody can call themselves a career job search coach. So why would you listen to me? Here's the thing. I came to talent acquisition from the outside, as I said, from I was outside the traditional channels. I did not spend any time in HR. So I spent a lot of time seeing with fresh eyes how hiring typically worked and really more how it didn't from the inside. And after I was laid off several years ago, I felt just as lost and untethered as any of you might, or some of you might already, might currently be feeling that way. You know the drill. I submitted application after application, occasionally landing an interview here and there, but rarely a callback and never an offer. Okay, this went on for several weeks. Now I'll tell you something, as is common for recruiters, someone in my network reached out to me one day asking me to keep an eye out for an opportunity for him because he wasn't feeling challenged at his current job and he was eyeing the exit. A few days later, I stumbled across a role and shared it with him, asking if it was the kind of thing he'd be interested in. He replied immediately and said, "Yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. What do I do now?" It stopped me dead in my tracks, honestly. I really remember thinking in the moment, this is a 40-some-year-old guy. Why is he asking me this? I thought, shouldn't he know? But a moment went by and, really dawned on me that, like most people I knew, what he probably would do or would think to do without any, guidance probably wasn't what was going to work. And I realized that throughout my years in talent acquisition, I had been actually incorporating everything I knew about psychology, which happens pretty automatically for me since that was kind of my first career and first love. And I was applying it to the pressure points in the hiring system to create a blueprint for getting hired that actually gave people like you the ability to sway hiring decisions from the outside. So as you can probably see from looking at my experience over the past 20 years, what we're looking at here, this is just the recent stuff. I went ahead and used it myself and ended up more than doubling my salary in about a month. I'll say it was just about a month. So now I live with the confidence that if I want to go out and get a new job in, next week or next month, I have a structured system that would allow me to have say over the outcome. And isn't that what all of us really want? To not feel so powerless at the mercy of people who don't know us or understand us. So let's talk about how to do that. It took me a master's degree and decades of experience to get here, but my goal is to make it easier for you. Okay. Now, I kind of want you to set aside, that's probably one more thing I should have asked you to do, is to sort of set aside for a moment everything that you've learned about how to get a job. There are parts of it you can certainly use. And I'm sure, if you've had a job ever, you've gotten a job somehow. So, you probably used some of those techniques. I'm not saying that none of that ever works in any way, shape, or form, but it's not what's most effective. Now, let's talk a little bit about, have you ever applied or been in the running maybe for a job that you were 100% qualified for? Give me a thumbs up if you've ever applied for a job where you literally met every qualification that they had stated. And that's not an easy task, right? Exactly. That is almost impossible. Okay. They've got those grocery lists of requirements that they all say they need, right? But if you've ever been qualified, 100% qualified, and didn't get the job, it tends to leave you wondering, if 100% isn't enough, what possibly could be, right? There's a reason why it feels so demoralizing when you get rejected for a job or almost worse, completely ignored in a situation like that where you're qualified. You're making the assumption, and it is an assumption and not an accurate one, that hiring managers know what they're doing, that they have the knowledge and wherewithal to make an objective, logical decision and choose the best candidate. The next logical step in that thought trail, then, if you take that to its logical end, is that you then are clearly not the best. Ouch, right? But I'm gonna let you in a secret here. The truth is, and I say this from a great deal of experience and respect for the people who do these jobs, that the odds of successfully hiring someone who will succeed in the job using the traditional methods is right about, and this is based on research, is right about 51%. Basically a coin flip. That's some pretty low results. Now, I'm guessing that in your job, if you were to say, I can deliver 51% of the results, you'd probably be booted by now. But if it doesn't work for them either, they're not getting this successful hire necessarily, why do they keep doing it the same way? Well, I'll tell you, because the majority of hiring managers really don't know what they're doing. They're not stupid, don't get me wrong. They've just never been taught to hire. They don't know how. If you can believe it, hiring is not on any MBA curriculum, which I find incredibly ironic, since getting the right people on the team is one of the key strategies for business success. But sure, okay, the HR department might provide them with, requisition forms to fill out and interview guides. But I hadn't been at one of the Fortune 500s that I worked at for more than a few days when I got the first of many calls from hiring managers within the company, picking up the phone, literally saying, can you teach me how to interview? These people barely knew me. They were desperate for this information. So now imagine you're a new hiring manager. You're trying to prove that you belong in the role. So you're going to are you really going to openly admit to all the people around you, especially the candidates, that you're just making it up as you go along? Probably not. It's how everyone else does it. So how could it be wrong? And it becomes a vicious kind of self-perpetuating cycle of the blind leading the blind. If you've ever hired, this might even resonate with you. Okay. So when we're the candidate, we assume hiring decisions are made based on logic. After all, they want a lot of facts and data from you to inform their decision. Your education, your years of experience, your specific skills. They want stories about, how would you handle this? And tell me about a time when you've this. And they need all this data, all this information, all these data points to try to make what appears to be a logical decision. But here's the truth. Hiring decisions, and people are people, and hiring managers are people too. Hiring decisions are emotional first, and then justified with logic. Give me a thumbs up if that's surprising to you. Okay. That's not unusual. It's extremely surprising to most people. That's the reality. Hiring decisions are emotional first and then justified with logic. What does that mean? Well, why is that? Because all hiring starts with a problem. Nobody hires just to put a butt in a seat, okay? Because hiring requires resources. It requires money, time, effort, energy, mental energy. Nobody would waste all that unless they had a problem. So let me give you just one example, okay? Well, I can give you one of two examples. I'm going to keep one of them short, so we don't spend too much time talking about this and get to some more of the meat here. When I was working at one of the Fortune 500 companies, it was a financial services company as well. And one of the not long after I started, one of the hiring managers had contacted me. He'd been working with one of the recruiters that worked for me. And what he said was, I just don't think this was my first conversation with me. He said, I just don't think she's really grasping what we're after here. We're trying to hire this position and, like a CSR, and I don't think she's getting it. I said, all right, let's have a meeting. Let's have a conversation. And so we went and met with I took the recruiter with me, went and met with that hiring manager. Mark was his name. And I asked him, he was a wealth management advisor. He had a practice, basically, an intact practice of his own that he had inherited from his dad. He had taken it over. And he was successful. I asked him, what is it you want this person to be able to do for you? What are you hoping that you're going to be able to do if you hire them? And he had to stop and think about it for a minute. And he said, you know what? I can service my A paper, my A clients. I have to spend most of my time with those people. But I also have what we call B and C clients, people who just maybe don't have a lot of money now, but eventually they may, money to invest or, to work with. They haven't built their assets yet. So I need somebody to pay attention to those people and nurture those relationships for me, and somebody who can, free my time so that I can have a little more me time. I have some private time, some downtime, and they can actually take care of trades when I'm not able to be in the office, when I'm golfing or I'm with my family or on vacation. I said, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And immediately I thought of someone that I knew who was new to the industry, but had struggled because he he was not great at, kind of the sort of the closing the deal kind of thing, sort of the initial relationship development and building business. He was great at nurturing it, but not so great at, initiating it. I reached out to that person because like I say, I had a relationship with him. I knew who he was. I'd worked with him before. I reached out to him and I said, Dale, I think I may have a position for you. I think you might be interested in having a conversation with Mark. The two met each other, and it wasn't a couple of weeks later, Mark hired Dale. Years later, I do stay in touch with them. Years later, I mean, not long after Mark hired Dale, they took me out for lunch to thank me. What a great match! What a great opportunity it was for both of them, and how happy they were with it. So, Mark had a problem, and they still work together. And Mark is expecting Dale to take over his practice. So, Mark had a problem. He didn't have enough time, and for himself, he was having to chase everything and everybody all at once, and he also, he wanted to free up some of his own personal time, and he wanted to make sure that his clients weren't ignored. And so that's what he was looking for. That was the problem he had. So he wasn't looking for X skills, X experience, X, education or degrees. What he needed was someone that could nurture those relationships and was capable of being in the office to take calls, answer questions, and service clients and trades while he was out doing his own thing. So when there's a problem that needs to be solved, somebody is experiencing pain. In Mark's case, he was experiencing the pain that he was missing dinners with his family. He was missing his kids' soccer games, etc. It's that pain that's driving hiring decisions. Now, here's the thing. Hiring managers think that what they need or what they're looking for are features, okay? Their education, or your education, your skills, your experience, like we said. But what they really want is the benefits they think those features will afford them in life. And we're going to talk about this just a little bit in a moment, but I think it's worth touching on here. When you pay extra for, say, side airbags for your car, what are you really buying? Safety for your family, right? Or how about when you pay for those courtside seats at the basketball game? You're paying for the excitement of feeling special and important, right? And for a better view, maybe. That's benefits, not features. Most of you have probably heard of this concept, but it's not a place that we apply it, in a job search. We don't really think about it that way. Like I said, we're going to come back to this a little bit later, but for now, just remember that hiring managers are looking for benefits, even when they ask for features. Remember, they don't know what they're doing. So yeah, I want you to think about, and this is a good example, kind of a good little exercise for yourself. Think about one of your job responsibilities that you've had, okay? And anything, whatever it might be. I want you to think of something right now, whatever is the most important job responsibility you have right now. And I want you to then think about, why is it important to the company, or maybe even to your hiring manager, that you do that thing, that responsibility? How does it benefit them? It's what we call impact. And that's exactly what hiring managers are looking for. When they say impact, we tend to think measurable outcomes, increased revenue by 200%. But what does that really mean? Does increasing revenue by 200% mean that you got your hiring manager promotion, or that you were able to add some additional staff headcount to try to ease the burden for everyone? Does it mean the company was able to go public? What was the impact? So that's one of the things that, that's really, really key to this whole, to the whole system. So now, when you think about it, have you ever bought something on impulse? Maybe you didn't even think that it made sense at the time, but you had to have it and you weren't sorry afterward. I mean, we've all done that, right? You've made decisions with your subconscious. Subconscious decisions are often based on our gut feelings and then driven by emotions like pain, frustration, anger, even joy. And they're often made quickly without a lot of consideration. When we're making decisions with our gut, with our emotions, we tend to make rapid decisions. We tend not to drag it out. We're going with our gut. That's why we call it that. Hiring managers are just like you, just like me. They have emotions that they want to relieve too. Again, remember, they're looking for the benefits. Benefits speak to those emotions. the pain of having to stay after hours to do the extra work, the frustration of not getting not being able to roll out that implementation because they don't have the right relationships, not being able to, fear of getting fired because or getting a bad performance review and not getting a raise because they didn't roll out that territory. They weren't able to roll into that territory properly. If you want to keep the process moving at a clip, not stalled, you need to tap into that emotion. So let's talk a little bit about the mistakes that are probably keeping you stuck or might be just keeping you from getting interviews and offers. Okay. This one might surprise you. The first mistake is answering, tell me about yourself. How many of you had that question? How many of you, I guess, give me a thumbs up if you've had that question and it's been the first question that you've been asked in probably every interview. Yep. No surprise there. There are people who will defend using that question as the first question. And I think it's incredibly ironic and almost laughable that the people who defend it are typically recruiters or HR people who claim, and sometimes hiring managers who claim, oh, I use that question because, to kind of break the ice and make the candidate comfortable. How many of us feel more comfortable answering that question? For most of us, it's very anxiety provoking. Okay. And tell me about yourself I can tell you this with authority. This is the laziest interview question there is. The reason it's typically asked is because, again, it goes back to they don't know what they're doing. They're not sure how to start the interview. Or, and this is an alternative, they haven't taken the time to do their homework. They haven't even looked at your resume yet. So they're relying on you to basically give them the synopsis. Very lazy interview question. That's not the only reason, though, that you want to avoid. I mean, it's a mistake to answer, tell me about yourself. Here's the thing. Whoever is in charge, whoever is asking the questions is the one in charge of the conversation. So when you answer even that first question, you've lost control of that conversation. Now they're in charge. You're the interviewee. They're the interviewer. And if you want to be able to tap into the problems and the pain of that person you're talking to, you need to make sure that you're in charge of that conversation. You want to be leading it where you need it to go. So here's an action step for you right away. Take charge by leading the way. If they ask you, ideally, you'll want to ask a question before they even ask you to tell them about yourself. But if they do, which often does happen, don't panic. You can do what we call a sidestep and use this instead. You simply say, I'm happy to answer, and I'm sure we're going to get to all of that. But I'd like to first understand the year one performance objectives for this role. What that does is, because part of why it's so anxiety provoking to answer that, tell me about yourself, is where do I begin? I told you guys some things about myself. I wanted to tell you some personal things about me, but does a hiring manager want to know that? I mean, do they want to know you were born in Georgia, or you're an immigrant from Europe or whatever? Do they want to know? You don't know. You don't know what's important to them. So all you're doing is just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks, hoping you hit on something that's important to them. By asking the question, now you can start to get at what they are thinking about. What's top of mind for them? What are they, what's right in the front of their brain? What's capturing most of their attention right now? What are they hoping to hear from you? You're going to get some of that information, usually a lot of that information, just by asking this question. So it's very, very important. This is an absolute key. Now, second mistake, selling yourself before understanding the problem. We're all taught to sell ourselves in a job search. It's everywhere, right? Think of cover letters. I mean, it's throughout the job search. Think of a cover letter. You spend paragraphs giving all the reasons why you're the right one for the job. Here's the reason. Yeah. But how can you know that if you don't even know what the job or the problem is yet? What the problem is that needs to be solved? It's impossible, right? And then you go into an interview or a screening call with a recruiter and you spend all your time telling them, here's who I am and here's why you need me, right? Here's the thing. It's very, no, complete respect for, the typical sort of, stereotypical idea of a used car salesperson, right? No, don't try to sell me something. Or, those expos at the state fair where they're trying to hawk their, knives or cookware or whatever. It's the same thing. It's coming on strong. And the reason that we're, kind of resistant to that, which we tend to be resistant to that and defensive, as do hiring managers, is because you don't understand me yet. You don't know what my problem is. How can you know that you are going to be able to solve it if you don't even know what it is? So here's action step for this mistake. You want to change your mindset. Here's what I want you to do. Imagine that if you have children, maybe you've got nieces and nephews, whatever, maybe your spouse, whatever, your roommate, imagine someone, comes to you and tells you they don't feel good. Now, if they're an adult, chances are, it's not your responsibility. But so for this case, let's imagine it's a child. Say they come to you and they tell you they're not feeling well. Would you say, oh, here, take this cough medicine, and then maybe take some Advil, and you should do this? And probably not. You'd probably play doctor, right? You'd start asking questions to understand what hurts before even thinking about proposing any solutions. It's called problem-focused thinking, something we use a lot in psychology, and it's what you need to do if you want to stand out and make it clear you can solve the problem. So if you approach the whole process thinking, I'm not a car salesperson, I'm a doctor. If you went to a doctor and say you had sprained your ankle and you go in and before the doctor says anything to you, the doctor says, well, here, take this pill. Well, doctor, what's it going to do for me? Well, it can help you lose weight. But that's not why I'm here. Aren't you supposed to ask me questions to understand what hurts before you start telling me what I should do and giving me your expertise? But that's not how we approach interviews or, our entire job search. So the focus needs to be on the problem. What is the problem? Understanding that problem, getting to that problem, and getting to the problem, understanding the problem before you start offering any of your expertise, any of your knowledge, any of your proof, so to speak. Okay. So think of yourself as a doctor, not a car salesperson or any kind of salesperson. You have, your prospect, so to speak, the hiring manager, the recruiter. Typically the hiring manager has a problem. They have a pain, something hurts, and you have the medicine. That's how you want to see it. But you have to understand the problem first. Okay? So let's go on to number 3. Not asking about resources or limitations. Every job has resource limitations. Okay? If you imagine, a job you've had in the past or maybe a job you have now, there are limitations to, the resources you have available to you. It could be not enough team members, small head count's low, or you're understaffed, for example. It could be, there could be budget limitations. We don't have all the machinery or all the equipment we need, the proper equipment. It could be, we don't have the right software or the right resources that we need in order to put a process into place and to make it work. We don't have enough capital to invest. Could be any number of things. So it's important to understand the impact of the environment you might be stepping into. When it comes to job descriptions and the recruiters and hiring managers who are hiring for those jobs, there's something we call in psychology the halo effect. They'll put an appealing spin on some of the more problematic aspects of the job in the hopes that it will give you a rosier impression of the job or the culture. Fall for it and you risk ending up right back in the job search within months. And for those of you who are eyeing the exit and not sure about your next steps, this one's really key for you. Okay. So action step, watch out for these red flags. You can do this just as easily by looking at job descriptions. You might want to, it doesn't mean you can't, express interest in these jobs or, kind of put your hand up and say, I might be interested, but you want to make sure you ask about these things. If these things come up in the job description, here's some, kind of hiring translations for you. When you see, must be able to thrive in a fast-paced environment. We see that all the time now, don't we? A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times that means, tons of stress, long hours, unrealistic deadlines. They're expecting a lot of you, probably more than is reasonable. So, willing to wear multiple hats. That's another one. That used to be much more common in, say, startup, but it's become rampant everywhere. And often what that means is you'll be expected to take on stuff that's really not within your role description, without extra pay or any kind of recognition of that. Must have a strong work ethic and dedication. That's kind of the same thing as, the bottom one. We're a family, it usually means, a culture that values overtime, working overtime, sacrificing your personal time, kind of blurring those boundaries between work and personal life. It really becomes certainly work-life. There's a reason we see work-life balance posts all over LinkedIn, workplace toxic cultures and good leadership that respects work-life balance. Most of us struggle with that, often because of the environments that we're working in. And then let's say, because we covered the last one, I'll just mention this one, no 2 days are the same. Oof, that's one to really watch out for, because very often that means it's chaos. There aren't processes, there aren't workflows, you're constantly fighting fires, from one thing to the next. And often it means it's a very stressful environment, and it might mean that, it's hard to make progress, in that kind of an environment. So not only watch for these things in job descriptions, but if they're in the job descriptions for jobs that you're interested in, or that you're interviewing for, that you're having conversations about, make sure that you're asking about resource limitations. So what might be the limitations of this role? What kind of environment am I working in? You might ask about, do we have all of the resources that we need to get X job done, to solve X problem? So make sure that you're checking on that to avoid ending up in the same spot, looking for a job again in 6 months. That's a very frustrating place to be. I've been there myself. Number 4, not challenging the requirements. I'll tell you a quick story about this one. I was asked to help a friend of mine who was running a recruiting firm. He said, I don't have enough bandwidth to fill all these requisitions. Can you help me? I said, sure, no problem. So, I worked on helping him. Some people, it was an entertainment, there were some entertainment industry roles. There were some software engineering roles with a real estate startup. And that real estate startup was looking for software engineers, but part of the job description was, the requirements, I shouldn't say the job description, but part of the requirements that they said they needed was they needed engineers that had experience in a corporate environment and had experience in a startup environment. Now, if you're not a software engineer, if you don't know software engineers, and this tends to be true of just about everyone, most engineers gravitate towards one side or the other. Okay. Precisely because it's a better fit for their personality. But just because, often they're very hard to find. That can be kind of the unicorn is, you hear that all the time, or sort of the purple squirrel or whatever. That's recruiter speak for trying to find, sort of the needle in the haystack. So when I went and look, I thought, this doesn't make sense. So I went back to the client. I went, to the hiring manager and said, okay, let's talk about this for a minute. Tell me a little more. Well, I want to back up for just a minute. I just want to say that, recruiters and hiring managers, they've often formed an opinion that in order to be successful, the candidate needs X. And in this case, needed corporate and startup experience, whatever X happens to be in that case, And then having made that decision, they fall prey to what we call in psychology the confirmation bias, which simply means they're going to try to assess each candidate. They're going to go into every assessment of every candidate in a way that's going to align with what they already believe. They're trying to confirm what they already believe instead of looking for information that challenges that belief. So challenging those requirements gets past the confirmation bias. In that instance, what I did, I went back to the hiring manager and I said, so tell me, and this is something you can do as well. So tell me, what do you think having startup experience will enable the successful hire to be able to do? What do you think it's going to make them capable of doing? And I got a response. They said, well, we need someone who can, take a lot of initiative and work independently. We don't have a lot of staff. So we need somebody who can really take initiative and kind of work on their own, do their own thing, and they can take it and run with it. I said, okay. Does someone have to have had startup experience to be able to do that? And they said, well, no, I guess not. I said, okay, now let's switch gears. What about corporate? What do you think, do you think, what is it you think that's going to make someone able to do? And they said, well, we need somebody who has experience. We're trying to scale. That was their problem, right? We're trying to scale. So we're trying to, we need somebody who has experience scaling, documenting processes and, knows how to systematize. I said, okay. Do they have to have had corporate experience in order to do that? And they're like, no, I guess, is there any other way they could get that capability? And they were like, yeah, I guess they could. I said, okay, now we know. So that was what I was actually looking for. Someone who knew how to document processes, or, didn't even have to have done it, but knew how to do it, knew how to create systems for, that would allow for scaling, and somebody who could work independently. That describes a much broader pool of people, right? Now I don't need a software engineer that can, that's been at a corporate and at a startup. Completely different experience. So what I suggest to you as an action step is to do the very same thing. As you look at job descriptions, ask yourself how the hiring manager might think each requirement or qualification might help the organization. And better yet, if you're having a conversation, even if it's a casual one with a recruiter or a hiring manager, ask, push back. Say you're having a conversation with a recruiter and the recruiter says, well, okay, they're doing a screening of you, kind of one of those standard screenings. And they say, well, we're looking for someone who has, one of my favorites is 5 to 7 years of experience. I hate to tell you this, but that's never been validated against anything. That's a guess. Literally nothing more than a guess. No one has ever validated those length of experience requirements against anything. They have never compared it to the people who've been most successful in that role, in that department, even in that company. They have no idea how many years of experience someone needs. Maddening, isn't it? But you can now challenge it. Now that you know this, you can go in challenging and say, oh, really? I'd love to know, what do they believe having 5 to 7 years of experience will make that person able to do? Or even a degree. How many jobs do we see that say that they require a degree when honestly they really don't? But that's the standard. It's just a way of peeling off candidates. I don't have to make as many choices, as many decisions. I have a smaller pool of people to choose from. I mean, they fall prey to that paradox of choice too. So it's just an easy heuristic sort of mental shortcut way to just eliminate a whole group of people unfairly. So in that case, if you're having a conversation and we're looking for someone with a bachelor's and you have an associate's, okay, does it matter in what? What do you think that bachelor's, that 2 more years of school, is going to allow that person to be able to do? It may be that you can do that same thing. And if you can explain that to them, then you're in a much better position to move forward with that role. Okay, now here's a fun one. People are always surprised by this one, and I'll try to move this quickly. I want to make sure I'm conscious of everyone's time. I hate to tell you this, but you've been lied to. You've no doubt been told to show enthusiasm and to over-deliver in your job search, right? It's most of us have, right? You want to. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm passionate. I'm excited about this opportunity, etc. But there's this thing called the law of economics, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. Something about when a resource is rare, it's more valuable. I mean, most of you probably are old enough to remember, lines around the Best Buy on Good Friday, or not Good Friday, Black Friday, apologies. Or, the Tickle Me Elmo thing, or long ago, the Cabbage Patch, kind of craze, people beating each other up in the store to try to get their kid that coveted toy. Well, in psychology, we call it something a little different. We call it scarcity. And it means the same thing, which is that the more readily available a resource appears to be, the less desirable it becomes to us. So to put it in simple terms, imagine being on a first date. You're having a fine time, a nice conversation with this other person, might even be thinking about a second date, okay? And then bam, all of a sudden your date starts talking about how much they like you and, they really think you're the best. And they see you guys going far and getting into a relationship and maybe moving in together might be a great idea. Woo. Most of us would be like, whoa, hold your horses there, slow down. in plain terms, like in plain English, we tend to call it kind of the ick factor. And yes, recruiters and hiring managers are humans, so they're susceptible to it too. Being too available can actually work against you. So what are your action steps in this case? Never send anything they didn't ask for, starting with number one. Never send anything they didn't ask for. A recruiter reaches out to you and says, are you interested in this role? If you think you are interested in this role, say, sure, I'd love to have a conversation about it. Don't immediately send your resume, your portfolio, a long, basically equivalent of a cover letter saying all the reasons why you'd be perfect for the job. Too available. Propose specific times. If you're reaching out to someone and inquiring about a position, or you're even reaching out to someone about sort of more of an informational type of an interview, propose specific times. Don't just say, I'm available whenever you are. Just tell me, jump. And you say jump and I'll say how high. That leads to the ick factor, believe it or not. It's human nature. We can't help it. We don't do it on purpose. We might even think we're not doing it, or we might be even mentally fighting it, but it happens. We have this gut feeling that we just don't know that we like this person. And then the third is and this is a key one, once you're in the interview stage, question additional steps. If you've been through, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds of interviews. I mean, one of the places I worked, the IT team was hiring, and I actually found out from one of my recruiters before I shut this down that the IT team was having candidates, and these were senior level software engineers who had plenty of options at the time, go through 12 rounds of interviews. I thought, this is ridiculous. That's death by consensus. Somebody's bound not to like them, right? Question additional steps. Say you go to interview number 2 or 3. Beyond 3, it's a little overblown. They're either stuck and they don't really know what they want, or they're looking for death by consensus. Kind of everybody's got to agree, and we're hoping, they're trying to make their decision easier is all it is. Have more people participate so that maybe somebody will say, I really like this person, let's make a decision. Or I really don't like this person, let's make a decision. Because hiring's expensive, and mistakes are expensive. And mistakes are typically, 1.5 to 2 times the total salary of the role that's being hired for to replace. So nobody wants that on their head. So when you're in a situation like that, and say you get to, interview 3, and they say, okay, so maybe they propose, we'd like to move on to, another interview, or want to schedule another, whatever it is. Question it. Don't immediately agree to it. Ask a question. All right, so what are we hoping to accomplish in this next step, in this next interview, this next conversation, this next interchange? What are we hoping we're going to get out of that? You have to respect yourself before other people are going to respect you, yourself and your time, your energy, your attention. Very important. So never send anything they didn't ask for. Always propose specific times. Show that your time is worth something. Questioning additional steps is another way of doing that. I saved this one for last because it's the biggest mistake of all that people make. Going in without a plan is like trying to recreate that amazing dessert you had that one time at that restaurant, but you have no recipe. Thankfully, now we have the internet and we can find most of those recipes, or at least facsimiles of them. But imagine not being able to do that. You might be able to get it done eventually, but it's going to require a lot more time and effort, just testing, practicing, all of that. And you might end up with an inedible surprise instead of a tasty treat, right? Having a plan and a guide kind of to show you the exact steps is like finding the shortcut, right? Or like finding the recipe on the internet. And when every week without a job means another week of lost income, who doesn't love a shortcut, right? I have compiled all of this information into a system. And because this system has helped me and hundreds of other people I've shared it with get jobs quickly and without all the endless waiting, disappointment, exhausting performances, I put it together as a complete turnkey, kind of blueprint, a turnkey solution for getting hired faster without all the headaches and stress and, just all the soul crushing, demoralizing parts of getting a job. It's easy to put into practice and easy to remember. Much easier than all the, Googled answers that you're practicing in front of the mirror, or, on mock interview tools and all that stuff. It's much easier than all of that. And because it's easy, you can walk into any interview, even one you have never prepared for, fully confident that you can advance the conversation and lead it where you want it to go. Not where they want it to go, where you want it to go. Okay. So if you're still here, you're one of three types of people. You're either somebody who's going to change nothing. You'll do nothing with this information. Hey, that's your choice. That's fine. Or you're someone who's going to, who just prefers to kind of figure it out on your own. You'll take some of this and apply it. Maybe that's great. You'll figure it out. You'll kind of practice it. You'll test it, test a lot of different things and come to the conclusions, eventually, maybe years down the road. Or you're somebody who just wants to play the game on easy mode, right? Using a really structured, proven system. And because, to get where you want to go faster without having to suffer through all of that crushing defeats and, endless waiting and ghosting and all of that, that is the typical job search. So if you're in that third group, I'm going to share an opportunity with you here. Okay. So bear with me. Like I said, I packaged my entire system into a 6-week program. I gave you a taste of it today. I couldn't possibly package, as you can see, we're pushing our time limit as it is. I couldn't possibly package all of the knowledge that I have accumulated over the past more than 3 decades and synthesized with psychology, talent acquisition, sales, coaching into 1 hour. It's 6 weeks worth of knowledge. I couldn't possibly package all that into an hour. I wish I could. But I packaged it into a 6-week program. And like I say, it's a turnkey solution for helping you get your next role fast by taking the lead throughout the entire hiring process from start to finish. Seriously, it may sound not likely or implausible, but I've helped hundreds of people get where they want to go. And I'd like to help you if you're interested. So, here's what you get with the program. I'll just go through this real quickly and you can see it as we go through. You get weekly 60-minute live coaching sessions. Those are group coaching sessions to learn all the pressure points, where you have the ability, kind of the weak points, where hiring managers really struggle to know what they're doing and where you can lead the way and actually help them choose you. You also get all of the proven frameworks. You get simple templates, swipe files, message templates, etc. Actionable exercises. There's no guesswork, no research, just results. Okay. You get exclusive access to a private community where you can network, you can support each other, where you get accountability, and where you can actually get access directly to me and my team for questions and answers. You can get those questions and answers, throughout the week. You don't have to wait for that weekly 60-minute live coaching. You get an AI-powered resume builder to streamline your asset creation. That part of the process is much, much easier with those kinds of tools. And we can kind of set that part aside because it's not even as big of a part of this process, of this blueprint. It doesn't have to be because you're relying a lot less on submitting applications. So like I say, you also get direct message access to me and to my team for any questions that you have. And I apologize if you can hear my dog barking in the background. Told you he's smarter than smarter than I am, I think. And you also get, we'll be having some live hot seat sessions. So you'll have a chance to refine and practice some of your interview skills, and you'll get real-time feedback from myself, my team, and even your peers. Okay, and what we'll cover, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here, but basically week 1, we're going to reverse engineer the job search. We're going to walk through, the entire process, basically understanding why the traditional way doesn't work and how you can use that to your advantage, which that in and of itself makes you stand out. We're going to help you build a personal brand that really attracts the right opportunities, has inbound, and translate that kind of, like I say, into an inbound strategy in that. And then we're going to help you translate your skills into clear and measurable impact. Okay, make that really punchy and very impactful. We talked about that impact. What impact does it have on the organization? And week 2. We're going to learn how to build powerful relationships. So you're going to use kind of those laws of economics to attract opportunities instead of chasing them down. We'll master an inbound and an outbound job search strategy that really works to attract instead of chase after. You're not the pursuer, you'll be the pursued. Then we're going to build trust and credibility before, during, and after the interview. Provide the proof before they even talk to you that they need to see. It's kind of like your Yelp reviews, what they're all looking for is evidence. Just like when you say you're going to a movie, you might go to Rotten Tomatoes. I know I do. Go to Rotten Tomatoes and check the reviews to see what did the viewers, regular viewers say? What did critics say? And then I make my decision based on that, because I want to make sure I'm investing my money and my time in something that I'm going to enjoy, something that has someone's stamp of approval, right? I want some proof. Well, hiring managers are no different. They want some proof too. So we're going to work with you to help you figure out how to, what is your proof and how to feature that. Then week 3, we're going to uncover the real hiring problem. This is how you're going to learn how to uncover that. So you're going to learn the exact 4-step framework that allows you to direct the interview where you want it to go, okay? And you'll learn that what's called the spiral technique to uncover the hiring manager's pain, what they really need, and we'll help you get comfortable navigating some of those tough and uncomfortable conversations. If you can't get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations, you're going to have a real challenge trying to uncover those problems and really dig in. So week 4, we're going to help you tell stories, craft and tell stories that get you hired. We use what's called a CARRY framework to tell compelling stories that really demonstrate the impact that you can have. You're going to master the 2-step method, the exact method that transforms interviews from pass or fail sort of performance evaluations kind of thing into collaborative 2-way conversations. It's just a conversation. Not scary. It doesn't have to be. And then you'll learn the one question that you can use to make sure that, have you ever walked away, sort of a Homer Simpson moment? You walk away from an interview and you go, oh, I wish I had said, darn, I wish I would have had a chance to talk about, I wish they had asked me about this. Those days are gone. You will be able to, with this one question, you will be able to make sure that you get a chance to talk about the thing that is going to really make you stand out. What makes you extra special? Then week 5, we'll talk about how you make the ask. That's actually the easiest part. And then to make sure that you get paid what you're worth, how to move the process forward all the way to an offer and, end those days of ghosting. It really does stop. And know when to discuss compensation. It's a timing issue. And when not to. When will you have the most leverage? And then to handle those negotiations with confidence so that you get, the maximum offer, the total compensation. Okay. And then week 6 is application and practice. So in between, of course, you're going to get a chance to practice these things, and you'll have a chance to ask all your questions in those live sessions as well as throughout the week in the community. But this is going to be specifically a week where we'll all spend some time practicing and giving each other some feedback. We'll also be hosting here and there. We'll have some, shorter sessions in the community hosted to, they might be more topical types of sessions. And there could possibly even be some contributions. We're talking with some professionals now, some contributions here where we will have informal sessions with some industry experts. Okay. Just get their input and take. All right. You also get resources. We've made the system as foolproof as possible, like I said, with frameworks, templates, guides, supportive community where you can get, your questions answered. There's no guesswork, no research. While you're a unique human with your own strengths and capabilities, this blueprint, it's like the guardrails that will keep you on the path straight to your next role. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, can this actually help me get hired faster, Gwen? Well, I can tell you, Derek, he called the strategy game-changing and literally landed a role within weeks. Karen signed up and got an offer literally 7 days later on her way home from her very first interview. And she was quite shocked. In fact, it was a delightful story. Oddly, I hear that story quite a bit from my clients where they'll have an interview, and even if they're walking away, they might hear something like, well, we still need to interview other candidates. And literally on the way home or the very next day, they'll say, well, we'll call you next week. The very next day or on the way home, which is what happened to Karen. They get a telephone call. We want to make you an offer. So it happens quite frequently. Nick's story I absolutely love because it was, once he learned about this, you learned the framework and the whole process, he messaged me very quickly within, I think it was 3 days. He messaged me and said, well, don't pop the cork yet, but I got through to the next interview. Using the frameworks, and he said it really made a lot of sense, and we talked about it briefly. Then he went into his next interview 3 days later, and he messaged me afterwards and said, now we can pop the cork. He talked about how he visibly watched the hiring manager's shoulders relax. He said that I could tell that they were much more relaxed in the conversation. It became a conversation instead of a pass-fail test. Because they could see how confident I was and they knew I could solve the problem. So 6 days it took him to get hired. Okay. So if you're wondering, I can tell you it absolutely does work. So if your goal is to follow a proven recipe, to get hired without all that typical nonsense and to walk confidently into every interview and to stop wasting your valuable time and energy and to start putting money in your pocket sooner, because time really is money, then this system's for you. I mean, every week that passes without a job, it means more lost income. How much more money would you have in your savings or in your checkbook? Or, what could you do with the money that you could put in your pocket if you were to get the job sooner? So I think that's really, really important. Like I say, even if you're not making any right now, and if you want proof of this, I can tell you, Ted had been searching on and off for over a year after a layoff. My year and a half. And as soon as he started using these strategies, and you can see in his own words, he landed the first job he interviewed for. And last week he actually messaged me, because this happened just about a month or so ago. He reported back that the job is actually bigger in scope than he thought, and he's loving the challenge. So very, very exciting. Mike actually posted on LinkedIn and said, I wish I'd known about this 10 months ago. He'd been laid off for 10 months. And he really mourned the, kind of that potential income that he'd lost during those 10 months that he'd been using a traditional approach. He'd routinely been making it through to the third or fourth round of interviews before ultimately being rejected anyway. Once he discovered these frameworks, he got an offer on the spot in the very first interview. He said he really wished he hadn't wasted all that time and those 10 months of his layoff on the old way. So I will say, though, it's not for everyone. And if you're afraid to step outside of your comfort zone, try something a little bit new, something you may not have tried before. Or if you're not prepared to invest in yourself, or you're expecting someone to just hand you a job, then this program's not for you. Okay, I can tell you that right now. We know that it's not for everyone. But now I am going to say this. I did say there were going to be bonuses. Okay, I mentioned about bonus. I'm going to actually offer to everyone who attended this session a special thank you bonus. You're going to get 6 months of pro access to Enhansive, which is an AI-powered resume builder, which is also part of the program. It's a little extra bonus that we've got. We were able to incorporate that just because of a partnership we have with them. So you'll get this AI-powered resume builder that will make creating a resume the easiest part of your search. Okay. This is a $175 value. And just because you've attended and stayed till the end, we've taken note of who's still here, you are going to get access to that. And the way you're going to get access to that is we will send you an email. It will be a separate email. Okay. It will come from Enhansive. And I'll put that, Emma, can you put that in the comments, please? In the chat, Enhansive, that you will be, so probably within the next 24 hours, in about 24 hours, check your email inbox, the one that you use to sign up, for an email from, search for the word Enhansive. And like I say, Emma's putting that in the chat now. So just check the chat for that and search for that, and you'll see the invite, and you can just go ahead and join, and there's no obligation on your part at all. Okay, so enjoy that. I will also say that as an extra special bonus for those of you who are ready to invest in yourselves and want to kind of dive in right away, the first 5 people who register for the program are going to receive a personalized LinkedIn profile review from my team and a done-for-you customized LinkedIn banner image. Okay, one that's it's your billboard, one that's going to really be a billboard and really show off, make kind of put you front and center, show off who you are and what you bring to the table, the problems that you can solve. So in a very attractive fashion. So so for that bonus, that's a $300 bonus right there. Put those 2 things together. So that'd be for the first 5 people who sign up. Now, like I said, the system I built is simple, but having somebody who's there and been there before to turn to for support and answers, that part is really, honestly, priceless. It really is. And that's not to pat myself on the back. I've done this. I've been doing this for a very long time. And it means more to me probably that, that you succeed than my success is your success. So in the next 6 weeks or so, you can keep following those rules, those same old rules, and make hope your strategy, or you can take matters into your own hands. That's why you're here, right? And go confidently into all your interactions and get hired faster. So that choice is really yours. My job's not to try to convince you to do it or that it's going to work. I got hundreds of successful clients to prove it. My job is simply to try to find the right people, the people who can benefit from the system and who are likely to use it. Because if you never use it, what good is it going to be? Okay. So if you're interested, your next step will be to apply to the program at the link in the chat. Emma's going to drop that in the chat in just a moment. Like I said, not everyone's a fit. We want to make sure you're a good fit. So, that link will also be emailed to you along with the replay from this session today. Now, once you have applied, you'll schedule a quick call with our team, one of our team members, to make sure you're the right fit and that we're confident that this program can help you get hired faster. I don't want anybody spending any money if it's not a good fit. Okay. Now, the core details, what I can tell you is, we want to make sure that we've got everybody, we've gotten everybody through screening calls and that type of thing. So we've got giving ourselves a little bit of a cushion here. Everyone, when you sign up, you'll get immediate access to the community. On March 11th, the course environment, basically where you'll get all of your resources and where you get the links to join the sessions, the live sessions, and that will become live, and you'll have access to that on March 11th. And then 1 week later, on March 18th, that will be the cohort kickoff. That will be the first session. And all calls are going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and they will be recorded if for some reason you're not able to attend. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today and for sticking around till the end. I really appreciate everyone. You know what? If you still have questions and you're not quite sure if it's right for you, that's okay. That's what the application process is for in the screening call. We don't want you to lock you into something you're not comfortable with, or that isn't, that just isn't for you. So feel free to go ahead and apply and, book that screening call, and we'll have a conversation, and together we'll determine if it makes sense, for us to work together. So don't feel that, you're making some kind of absolute commitment just to submit the application. Okay. So if you have doubts, then, I would encourage you to go ahead and fill out that application, and we'll have a conversation and see what makes sense. I really appreciate appreciate you all for attending today, for joining us, and hope to see you on the inside, or at least hope to see those applications come in so that we can have a conversation and see what makes the most sense for you. Okay. And I look forward to seeing you all on LinkedIn.